So I'm here at the beautiful Millfield School with Director of Rugby, John Mallet. John, tell me, from the people who brought you up, who gave you your sense of humour?
Oh, good question. Good starter, Rich. It has to be my dad. I think the sort of relationship with having my father and fun around and home, and also fortunate having 4 siblings, or 2 older sisters and 2 younger brothers. So it was,
2 older sisters, 2 younger brothers.
Yeah.
So you're the kind of balancing edge.
Yeah, I think so. The level, sensible one in between all the craziness.
What kind of uncle are you like?
Yeah, I'm there. A little bit distant. Don't do enough probably seeing those my nieces and nephews, but interested in what they're up to. Yeah.
So you played in the kind of voodoo role of front row for Bath.
Yep.
You got a cap for England. You've gone through coaching, director of rugby here. Who has created the best culture that you've been in, and what was great about it?
I think I've been really fortunate I was part of Bath Rugby during their success, and part of their success was a really strong culture. It was very different from what you'd see as a successful or good environment even now, because it was 20 odd years ago. But I think that strong culture drove a good deal of success, which felt good and great to be part of. It also perhaps hid some difficulties within that culture because it was successful. We'd gone away with some stuff that actually, if you step back and look at and you weren't winning and things, you perhaps wouldn't be able to do it. But I think that was certainly the strongest. It was definitely the most successful. But if you look at it, Bath Rugby of 90s, late 90s vintage. Really.
Thank you. So, director of rugby, you had me in a couple of months ago. It was a real privilege to come in, did some session with some coaches, some of the boys and some parents, and your brotherhood kind of vibe, the culture you're trying to create. Tell us about that. What
we're a bit further down the road from when we saw you, and that was a great reinforcer, I think, of spending some time, the boys spending some time with you, because they'd already thought and considered what was important to them. We basically gave them the challenge of how can we be more team orientated, more selfless within the school rugby environment, and I think they peeled back some of the layers on it with you. They've talked about their values, which are becoming more part of the language they're using. We went, after we'd seen you, went and did a trek in the Brecon Beacons, and a lot of that stuff come out pretty strong when guys are tired and under a bit of pressure and things. And they talk about 4 values of empathy, sacrifice, commitment and flexibility. Was there 4? And to a certain extent, the important bits about those for me are that the boys have chosen those and selected that language themselves, and it's their input into that, and trying to make those real actions will become part of a strong culture. I think we've had that at times in our environment. We've also had challenges against that in recent times, I think, where the individual drive and ambition has reduced the effectiveness of the team.
So, I mean, what blew me away when I was with them was we did some sharing stuff, and I think they probably spoke to each other in ways that they'd never done before. Yeah. And, being 6th form boys, there was a good bit of banter with it, but they looked each other in the eye, and I think they gave some real affirmations, not just about good try or you're big and strong, but actually talking about the character traits that each of them brought. And I thought it was quite a moving kind of session, and it was great to see them develop that. Yeah. How did the Brecon Beacons add onto that?
Yeah, it was interesting. A few conversations out there in Brecon with the boys about that session they did, and being very open and talking to each other, and said to them, I loved seeing you do that, and I thought there was some great stories being told to each other, and one or two of the boys came, we do that all the time. And for me it was new, and I thought, the boys never do this, they never do. And there were one or two like, oh yeah, we talk to each other about stuff, and we're pretty, so that was quite cool for me, perhaps as an understanding of that. But also I think them practicing that bravery, being courageous enough to say the things that they see or they believe in, rather than what's right to say or what's cool, right at the right time.
Brilliant. Do you think there's a danger? Like, I think you're a little bit older than me, but we grew up with a model of masculinity, didn't we? And it's like getting used to the fact that actually the boys that you get to work with, the parents that I work with now, their children, they've grown up in a different understanding of masculinity, and there is certainly, I would say, a bit more vulnerability, a bit more openness, a bit more honesty. Social media, love it or hate it, at least means they're sharing elements of their lives that we wouldn't have done as kids, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a change and I think part of the drive for us around culture currently is about the boys being able to establish that themselves, and it's not something that we're driving or facilitating the idea of having a strong culture, but actually what that is, and what the values and the actions are. It's important that comes from the boys, and rather than me and our old fart standing at the front telling them what to do is not, that's definitely changed without doubt in terms of our relationships as teachers with pupils in the school, as a coach with players in a schoolboy team, for me as a housemaster of kids, and that's definitely changed in terms of how children school age will interact with adults. And it's, I think it's an important one to grasp.
You're also a housemaster.
Yeah.
How many boys in the house?
54 teenage boys.
So, which year group?
Year 10 to 13.
Year 10 to 13. Wow. So, what character traits do you hope that they kind of get from having Mr. Mallet as kind of housemaster? What when they leave your house, what are the ways? What are the things that you are hoping they're going to have picked up from you?
Decency, treating each other well, and the people around them with a degree of respect, understanding each other, and some really simple, doesn't take much for those basic manners, but to be able to interact with each other and realise that not everyone's going to be their best friend or always tell them what they want to hear, but there's also a level of needing to understand to be able to get on with those people and share space with them, and actually be able to put into the environment, as well as taking stuff out. They're in an incredible place, but they have a real duty to that basic decency, but also a readiness to put back to affect others in a good way.
And when it comes to parents, because we did a session with a few of your parents and your brotherhood, what do you think parents can do at home that would most advance that brotherhood culture within the team? What if you could sit down with each parent and say, actually, can you just do these few things? What would those few things be?
Sure. I think it's perhaps starting with a negative of an avoidance of the self-importance, and it's all about you, and the focus on the individual and their self-promotion in terms of playing for the team or the A team or the academy or whatever that might be. But actually,
so a richer understanding of their place in a bigger picture, and a bit more grounded attitude.
So being able to come back to the team and the broader aspects of their interactions rather than performance. But I think I'd be hesitant about going back to not doing something. I think the focus around those values and character on a sports field. We've just seen an amazing game of 2020 cricket, and what are those things around there, as well as the guy that's hitting the ball wonderfully well. How are people responding to that around him, supporting him, or not if they're in the opposition, and how they're dealing with that. And I think that's the joys of what we really want to bring out in the guys that are playing rugby at school and go to school. It's not just rugby, it's all stuff.
Brilliant. One last question: when your kids give you some grandchildren, what's the character trait that you most hope your children emulate as a parent from yourself and from your wife?
Say that again.
So when your kids give you grandchildren,
yeah,
and they're becoming parents themselves, and they think, how am I going to do this? And they model themselves a bit on you and your wife. What are you most hoping they'll carry on into the next generation?
Family, loving, authentic, decent.
Yeah, he's going to pay me for that.
Brilliant. John, thank you very much. Appreciate that, mate.
Awesome.